Hi, and welcome to the Blitz Online edition. My name is Josh Brown, the sports editor. To my right is Colin Foster, the associate sports editor, and to my left is David Fong, the executive editor and local Troy Trojans expert. This week we'll be discussing last week's action with a feature piece from David Fong on Troy's wide receivers, and then we'll be discussing our picks for what's going to happen Friday night. We'll start off with Troy's big win over Shawnee, the first win for Scott Brewer as a head coach. Mr. Fong, you were there. Tell us a little bit about what happened in the game.
Obviously, it was a big win for the Trojans, not just because it was the first win in Scott Brewer's career at Troy, but also because the Trojans got off a losing streak that they had started the season off with. So it was a nice win in terms of building confidence toward the rest of the season. Troy came out and played extremely well, particularly on offense, where they rolled up 41 points and almost 400 yards in total offense. That had actually been a struggle for the Trojans the first couple weeks of the season during the two scrimmages and during the first game of the regular season. But they showed that they've got a young quarterback who's coming along, and they've got an offensive line with a lot of new parts that's really starting to gel. And if they can get everything clicking, I think they're going to be okay through the rest of the season.
And even in that first week, it took a last-second play for them to fall.
Right. Well, the defense has always been there for Troy, and so long as Scott Brewer's the head coach, I think the defense is always going to be there. That's where his roots are. He was a defensive coordinator at Troy for 6 years before this season. So I think the defense was never going to be in question coming into this season. I think the big question mark surrounding the Trojans was what they were going to be able to do on offense, and they really showed last week what they're capable of doing.
Another of last week's big games was the Troy Daily News game of the week, Bradford versus Bethel, a first-week matchup of two CCC teams that have had a pretty good rivalry over the past couple of years. Colin, you were there. Tell us a little bit about that game.
It was great to see the Rudders get off to a victory, start the CCC play. Basically, James Cannon just put the game on his back from start to finish. Piled up 334 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, and it was his show from start to finish.
Also last week, Tippecanoe steamrolled Greenville for their second straight win to start the season and their second straight rout to start the season. They'll have a little bit tougher test this week when they face Milton Union, though, who rallied and defeated Oakwood by scoring 3 straight touchdowns in the fourth quarter to win 48-38 after they trailed by close to 20 points most of the game. Also last week, Miami East got back on the winning side and destroyed Ansonia 45-6. Covington steamrolled Mississinawa Valley 62-0. Piqua edged out Kings at the last minute 24-21, and Minster beat Lehman 46-7. Even though Troy piled up so many rushing yards last week, one of their most unsung units is their receiving corps. And this week, Mr. David Fong is going to tell us a little bit about them.
All right, we're here with Troy High School wide receivers Nick Zimmer, Seth Perziola, and Curtis Johnson. There's been a renaissance at the wide receiver position for Troy High School this year, and they're throwing the ball like never before. We're here this week to talk with the three of them about the season and what they expect to happen the rest of the season.
Now that we're passing the ball a lot more, it's fun. Like, when we do, it's for a big play, so like a post or a slant, you catch it, you just got to run, and it could be for a touchdown, and it's just fun this year. We're spreading it out more, and it seems to be working a lot.
Under Coach Brew, we throw the ball, and our strength on the offense is out on the edge, on the perimeter, and we seem to be using it pretty well, so that's going pretty well for us.
We get the ball a lot more, and we do a lot more things, and it just feels like we're a lot more important, and it just makes our team a more rounded team because we can throw and run.
But the past couple of years, you started to see a trend moving more toward the pass. Troy had a quarterback throw for 1,000 yards each of the past 2 seasons. And they've got a new quarterback this year in junior Matt Barr, who's really been playing well. He's really coming along. And I tell you what, they've got some receivers who have a whole lot of speed. And if they can get out on the corner and get the ball in their hands, they can really make some things happen.
Which brings us to week 3. This week, Troy returns home to face undefeated Xenia, and let's see who we think is going to win. Mr. Fong?
I think Troy is going to play well, and I think they're going to come out and win this game. Troy really showed last week what they're able to do. Xenia's a very good team. They've got a very talented quarterback, but a dual-threat quarterback who a lot of the Troy coaching staff has actually compared to Michael Vick. But I think Troy, with the way they're rolling on defense, and now that they finally got the offense clicking, will be able to pull out the win.
Myself, I was surprised to see that Troy put such a hurting on Shawnee last week, just based on the fact that they made it all the way to state last year. I don't see why they can't do it again this week against Xenia. I think Troy wins.
I've got to agree with both of them. You don't beat a state runner-up, and the only thing Troy has to fear is a letdown, and I don't think Scott Brewer is going to let that happen. Not after last week. And now for this week's game of the week, we have Milton Union traveling to Tippecanoe for the yearly rivalry contest, and this one is always. I want so bad to just be able to cop out and flip a coin to decide, because this one is a tough one. But due to the history and the rivalry, I've got to take Tippecanoe.
I'm in the same boat with you on that. I think both teams have very good running backs, 3 very good running backs. I think both are very good physical football teams. I think what it comes down to this week is the fact that Milton has been challenged early on. They've had to come from behind to win against Oakwood last week. Tip has had 2 routes in the first week. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Tip responds once Milton hits them in the mouth, because they're going to do it in a rivalry game like this.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what my pick comes down to is based on the fact that the game's at Tippecanoe, and I think the X factor is going to be quarterback Ben Hughes. He's also had experience in big games before. I think Tip wins it.
I think experience is definitely going to be the key to this game. Tip has played in a lot of big games the past few years. They've made it to the playoffs the last 7 years in a row. The kids are used to that big game atmosphere and playing in front of big crowds and that sort of thing. So I think that experience will be the key that gives Tippecanoe the victory.
All right, and another big game. The only game that could have beat this one out for game of the week would have been Tip Milton. We've got Bethel traveling to Covington, where Bethel's new coach, Kevin Finfrock, makes his return to Covington. And the way Covington has played the first 2 weeks of the season, I think I have to go with Covington in this one. They've 62-0 over Mississinawa Valley last week. Their offense is always tough. They can move the ball. Dave Miller has that triple option attack where you just never know who's going to be running it, but they all can run it well. And I think Covington wins this one.
Just going off of what you said on that, I think Bethel, what they had trouble with last week against Bradford was stopping the run. Bradford racked up over 400 yards rushing. Covington's coming off a game where they got a school record 556 yards rushing. Game comes down to who's going to stop the run. If Bethel can do it, they might have a shot, but I just don't see Covington losing this game.
This game is going to be an outstanding game in time. I think Kevin Finfrock is eventually going to get the Bethel back where it has been in the past, and I think he's going to make it into an outstanding rivalry game, but I just don't think they're there yet. I think the Bees will be there. They'll have their day, but that day isn't going to be this Friday, and I think Covington just has way too many weapons. Is going to roll in this game.
We got a couple of quick hitters to finish out. We have Arcanum at Miami East. Miami East looked really good last week. I think they're going to look even better this week. You guys?
There's no chance Miami East lose this game. Guaranteeing it.
This one's a lock. Miami East has this all the way.
Then we have the surprise undefeated matchup of undefeateds in the Cross County Conference with Bradford and National Trail, where 3 to 4 years ago, this was the game to find out who went 0-10 and who went 1-9. But now this year, both teams are 2-0 to start the season. After the way James Cannon ran against Bethel last week, I think Bradford wins this one too. They go to 3-0.
Once again, Bradford is a lock in this one. I'm basing this on strength of schedule. National Trail played Ponitz to open the season, narrowly escaped with a win. I just don't see Bradford losing this game at all.
Bradford's definitely way more battle tested. This is a great story, though. The fact that these two teams have built themselves up from where they used to be, and as someone who's covered Miami County football for a long time, I knew just how bad this game used to be. And while it's fun to see these two teams come in undefeated, Bradford's definitely going to leave the only undefeated team.
And then we've got Piqua at Lima Senior. Piqua narrowly won last week, but against a playoff team, so I think they've got what it takes to win yet again this week.
I would have to agree with you on that. I think Piqua's got it going on the right track now. Had some young players coming into the season, had to rebound, and I think once they got the winning going, I think they'll be all right.
What has happened to Lima Senior? They used to be one of the premier Division I programs in the state, but ever since Leonard Rush retired as their head coach, they've really just had really tough times and really struggled. I see Piqua with no real problems in this game.
And then to finish things off, we've got Indian Lake at Lehman. Lehman's struggled the last couple of years. They've been rebuilding since they made a deep state tournament run. I think playing against a bigger school like Indian Lake, I think Indian Lake's got the advantage in this one. Lehman's still rebuilding a little bit. They'll be there, not quite yet.
I would 100% agree with you. I think playing a team like Indian Lake, who's in the CVC and has had some tough games early on, I think they'll roll a team that's rebounding like Lehman.
I think it's unanimous then. I'm going to go with Indian Lake as well.
All right. Thank you for joining us on the first week of the Blitz Online edition. I'm Josh Brown. We'll see you next week.